Welcome to this video supporting Chapter 10 of my iOS 7 Developers for Absolute Beginners book. In this video you'll take a look at mapping in iOS and follow through some of the examples from the book for building applications that involve mapping. So let's get started. We'll say create a new Xcode project, and as always it's going to be a single view application. Let's just call it Map Demo. Organization name and company identifier, you can set whatever you like, but ensure that class prefix is empty and the device is set to iPhone. Click Next and you'll be asked where you want to keep your code. I just like to leave it on the desktop because these are just simple samples. And then source control, make sure is unchecked. And then click Create. So you'll see the familiar workbench, and we have our app delegate, we have our main storyboard, and we have view controller. So let's select main storyboard, and the storyboard editor will come up. And we're going to add something called a map view control. Now we can scroll through the list like this, or we can just type map, and we'll see the map view control. As I drag the map view control, you'll see by default it fills the entire view. So I'm just going to drop it so that we get our default map view. Now before we run it, there's a library that we need to add to our app, and this is something you probably haven't done yet, so it's good to take a look and step through this carefully. So first of all, take a look at the project navigator and select the actual project within the project navigator so that we get this screen. Next, you'll see these tabs: General Capabilities, Info, Build Settings, Build Phasing, Build Phases, etc. So the one that you want to select is Build Phases. And on Build Phases, you'll see there's a number of different menus: Target Dependencies, Compile Sources, Link Binary with Libraries, and Copy Bundled Resources. The one that we're looking for is the Link Binary with Libraries link. So if I select that, you'll see there are these libraries using the .framework extension that are being used by the app. Now, a library called MapKit supplies iOS mapping functionality. So if I select plus and take a look at all the different things that iOS gives me, as I scroll down through the list, or if I just start typing map, we'll see the MapKit framework. So I'm going to add the MapKit framework to this. So I'm linking the MapKit framework into my application in order to use mapping. If I didn't link this in, it wouldn't compile and it wouldn't work. Okay, so now that we've done that, we can start running our application and we'll see what happens. And now the application runs. And here it loads the map tiles. So as we can pan around the map and we can zoom in and we can zoom out just like with any other map. So very, very simple. Here's creating my first mapping application with a map. And let's see if we can expand this now so that we can get some intelligence off of the map. For example, the latitude and longitude of the center point of the map. So I'm going to stop the application from running. And then I'm going to return to main storyboard. Now the map view itself is filling the entire screen, so let's not have it do that. Let's have it fill half the screen. Now I find, like with controls like this, sometimes it's hard to get a hold of them to be able to change the size. This time it was pretty easy. If you have difficulty doing it, I find the best thing to do is move it off the view a little bit like this and then start dragging from one of the corners. But I got it nicely here, and you can use the arrow on the left as a guide to about half the height of the view. So I've just set it so that it occupies the top half of the view. And I'm going to add a couple of controls, just labels, to this. So I'll have a couple of labels underneath, and this one will be for the longitude. And this one will be for the latitude. And again, just sizing them using the margins. Okay, now that I've done that, I need to create 3 outlets, one for the map, and one for each of the labels. So to do this, as always, we open up the assistant. We can close the sidebar. Oops. Make sure that the assistant is on viewcontroller.h. Make sure that we can see everything. And then start control dragging. So I'm going to control drag the map view on here, and I'm going to call it my map. It's of type MKMapView. When I connect, in a moment I'm going to get an error. Now the error is because I used the mapping library and I linked it into my application as we saw earlier on. But in C, you usually have to import these libraries based on their headers as well. So in order to use mapping, I have to say MapKit /mapkit.h. So then I get in that object type MKMapView. So now it understands what an MKMapView is. MK stands for mapping kit, and MapView, of course, is the control. So now for the label, I'm going to control drag the first one, and I'm going to call it lat label. And I'll control drag the second one and call it long label. So now I have my controls wired up and I can start coding. So I'm going to close the assistant and move into my code window. And as the map view uses a delegate, we're used to using delegates hopefully by now, I have to set up my view to be in a map view delegate. So I'm just going to say mk map view delegate. So that way functionality from the map view can be delegated to my view so that I can handle it. So when I go into my view controller, within my view load, I need to say that the specific map control that I'm using, which I called my map, is going to delegate functionality to the view controller. There we go. So now everything is good to go. We have to start implementing some functions so that we can do something. So we said we're going to put a couple of labels on the map, and those labels would be for the latitude and longitude. So what we can do is we can take a look at the events for the map view. So if I start typing -void and hit M, now we can see like the type of events that the map view can delegate to the view. And one of these is called region did change animated. So this tells the delegate that when the region displayed by the map view has just changed, as we can see here, this event will fire. So that sounds like exactly what I want. So what I'm going to do is, as I drag the map around and the map has changed its position, then let's see if we can report on its current position and like load that into the latitude and longitude. So the map itself we called my map, and if I just start typing my map, one of the things my map has is something called a region, and that gives me a coordinate region. And then the region, which is like what I'm looking at the moment, and that region has a center. So the center of the space within the map that we're presently looking at. So we might be zoomed all the way down into a street, or we might be zoomed all the way out to a state. So the center of the actual region that we're looking at has a latitude and a longitude. So this looks perfect to us. And this is an object type CL location degrees, but this F is telling me that it's a float. So what I can now start doing is to create a string. NS string star lat equals, I'm going to allocate a new string, and I'm going to initialize it with a string format, which we've seen earlier in the book. And that string format is going to be a %f. And the argument to that, of course, is going to be the latitude of the center of the map. So I can just say my map dot region dot center dot latitude. And I can do a very simple, what have I done wrong here? I should underscore my map, and I'm missing a couple of square brackets. See how Xcode gives you hints as you're developing that you've done something wrong, and it's a lot easier to fix a line of code as you're writing it than to come back much later and fix it. And also, if you notice, when I typed the square bracket, it thought it knew where I'm supposed to put one in, and it put it in, but it was in the wrong place. But that little yellow flash showed me where it put it and made it very easy for me to find it. Now I'm going to say ls string for longitude is the same thing. NS string alloc init with format. It's a float %f, and then underscore my map dot region dot center dot longitude. So I now have my two strings, and it's very easy for me then to load these into my labels. Lat label dot text equals lat. Long label dot text equals lon. I can't use long because long is actually a variable type for long integer, so that's why I'm just saying lon for longitude instead of long, because I don't want to confuse the compiler. Alrighty, so let's see what happens now if we run this app. So now I have my map, and it's showing me the center of the map is like 37 latitude and -96 longitude. If I move my map around, we'll see the latitude and the longitude change to something else. So for example, if I center it on Tokyo, and I zoom in, even zooming changes it. I have a slow internet connection right now, so the tiles take a moment to download. My favorite restaurant in Tokyo is up here somewhere. See if I can find it. No, can't find it right now. Never mind. Just going to move into Chiyoda district, and we can see how the latitude and longitude changes as I move it around. So it's a very simple little application, but it starts showing you the kind of things that you can do with mapping. It's a very, very powerful, the MapKit framework, and hopefully you can have some fun building apps with it. And let's make one more change. You know the way that right now this map is just a standard map, but as you use maps online, you can sometimes use satellite images, or you can use a hybrid of a straight map and satellite image. So let's amend this app so that we can do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move my labels down out of the way. And I'm going to bring my sidebar back in so I can add a segmented control. We looked at segmented controls in an earlier chapter. So I'll drag and drop the segmented control on here. I'll make it the full width. I'm going to give it 3 segments. So segment 0, I'm going to call map. Segment 1, I'm going to call satellite. And segment 2, I'm going to call hybrid. So I now have 3 segments, and whoops, I left that one as first. What did I do wrong there? So let me go back and change that. I'm going to call that map. Should press enter, I guess. And then on here, I'm going to call that satellite. Press enter to make sure that it sticks. Okay, so I have my switches from map, satellite, and hybrid. So next thing I'm going to have to do is set up my assistant. I can get this out of the way so that I can have an action and an outlet on my segmented control. So I'm going to create an action. So first I'm going to create an action, and I'll call that action button choose. And then I'll create an outlet, and I'll call that outlet, I don't know, style chosen. Okay, so now if I come back to my code, I can close the assistant. I'll see that the button choose has been created for me. An action has been created for me. So I can just start writing some code in here. And so my selection control has an option, has a property on it called selected segment index. It's hard to say. So I'm going to say switch. Now what did I call my control? I can go back to my header and take a look. I called my control style chosen. So if I say switch style chosen dot selected segment index, that's going to give me the segment that I had chosen, and it was 0, 1, or 2. So if I say case 0, then my maps type should be, we wanted it to be a standard, and there's a constant in here, mk map type standard. Let me just put some spaces under the end of my code so it moves up so you can see it a bit better. And then break. If it was 1, oops, I forgot to say my map.map type equals mk map type standard. If it's case 1, my map.map type was, we wanted it to be satellite, I believe. mk map type satellite. Break. And if it was for case 2, it's my map.map type equals mk map hybrid. And break. So I've now written the function for the selection control, and if I run my application, let's see what happens. Now the application runs. I can see map. If I click satellite, the satellite tiles will download, and if I click hybrid, the hybrid tiles will download. So if I, for example, go back to my favorite city, Tokyo, and start zooming in, we can see when we're on hybrid type, when we get in pretty close, we start seeing what the city looks like, as well as maps of the roads. It's a really dense city. It'd take a moment for the tiles to download, but you get the point. So this is the, the great kind of thing that you can do using The MK MapKit is a very simple application that I've loaded to show you, and hopefully you've enjoyed doing it, and I'd love to see the kind of cool stuff that you're going to build with MapKit yourself.